Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for gathering for the executive level online meeting of GoLS, which stands for Group of Leading Subnational Governments Toward Aichi Biodiversity Target. It is about the time to start the meeting. My name is Takashi Otsuka from ICLEI, Local Government for Sustainability. I am very much honored to assume the moderator's role today to guide you through this online meeting. Today, we have members of GoLS, namely Aichi from Japan, Gangwon from the Republic of Korea, Ontario from Canada, Quebec also from Canada, and as a subnational governments. We also have partners of GoLS, namely Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity, ICLEI once again, and NRG4SD. The last, but not the least, we also have some parties of CBD, such as Japan and the Republic of Korea. Before starting the meeting, I would like to draw your attention that this meeting is broadcasted to the world through YouTube Live. We welcome questions and comments from the audiences via email that we would like to address towards the end of the meeting. Now, for the commencement of the meeting, please welcome Governor Hideaki Omura of Aichi Prefecture for his opening remarks. Governor, please.
Thank you. Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Hideaki Omura, Governor of Aichi Prefecture. I would like to thank the 7 national governments of GoLS, the CBD Secretariat, the parties, ICLEI, NRG4SD, and those watching on YouTube for participating in the online GoLS meeting today. In 2010, COP10 was held in Aichi, where the Strategic Plan for Biodiversity 2011 to 2020 and the Aichi biodiversity targets were adopted. At the same time, the Plan of Action on Subnational Governments, Cities, and other local authorities for biodiversity was endorsed with the adoption of Decision 1022. As the subnational government that hosted COP10, Aichi is committed to leading the efforts to achieve the Aichi targets. Aichi therefore established the goals in 2016, together with ANAE, Catalonia, Ontario, Quebec, and São Paulo. At COP13, held in Cancun, Mexico, in December 2016, the goals adopted the joint statement, which was announced at the 5th Global Biodiversity Summit meeting. We also held a forum to advocate the importance of subnational governments. Now that Campeche and Gangwon have joined our membership, we have 8 subnational governments in the group. We have continued our discussions ever since and are convinced that subnational governments play a crucial role in achieving the Aichi targets. We all believe that subnational governments around the world must further strengthen their initiatives. We have also agreed to build stronger partnerships with the parties as well as municipal governments. Today's meeting is being held to further explore that subnational governments can do toward 2020, which is the final year of the Aichi targets. During the course of the meeting, we hope to hear what the CBD Secretariat and the parties expect from us. This meeting is broadcast online to people across the world. we ask our fellow government officials to send in their comments by email. We are hoping to make this a successful and productive meeting so that we can contribute to a better future for the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Governor Muller. Now, we also would like to welcome Ms. Amy Frankel, Head of Division for Mainstreaming, Cooperation, and Outreach of the Secretariat of CBD. Ms. Amy Frankel, could you come in, please?
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Honorable Governor Omura, the other governors on this call, I'm very honored that to be able to speak to you today and to follow Governor Omura in opening this webinar on behalf of the Executive Secretary of the Convention on Biological Diversity. And I'd like to offer a warm welcome to all of our partners and participants in the call, including the government of Japan and Korea, who I understand are also joining us. It's a true show of the levels of government that we hope to bring together in these kinds of efforts. The group of leading subnational governments for the Aichi biodiversity targets, or goals, has been one of the groundbreaking outcomes to emerge from the Aichi prefecture, starting with a remarkable 10th Conference of the Parties in Nagoya in 2010. First and foremost, the strategic plan and its 20 Aichi biodiversity targets that were adopted at that meeting established not only the framework for the Convention on Biodiversity, but it established the global framework for action on biodiversity. Also at that meeting, there was a groundbreaking adoption of a 10-year plan of action for the engagement of cities, subnational governments, and other local authorities. So it was really at COP10 in Nagoya in Aichi Prefecture where this importance of engaging cities and subnational governments was born. On the margins of that same meeting, Aichi Prefecture also hosted and helped to organize the second Cities Biodiversity Summit. And at that meeting, there was a declaration adopted, which was taken to the ministerial segment of the conference. Since that time, Aichi has certainly been very active and was also a significant contributor and leader in the Advisory Committee of Subnational Governments, which is one of our key advisory groups in this area for the convention. Now the Aichi Prefecture has once again shown leadership through the establishment of goals, which took place at our last COP in Mexico. Aichi and goals members also came to Montreal for our meeting in November of our scientific body and met with our executive secretary there to share experience and exchange ideas for strengthening our collaboration. So Governor Omura, we are extremely grateful for your continued leadership in this area. Now, the role of subnational governments in achieving our shared objectives on biodiversity has never been more important. As we come to the end of the decade and start to think about what follows, we need to ensure that the role of subnational governments is made even more prominent and brought to the attention of the discussions that will be taking place over the next few years. Action all around the world showcases the leadership of subnational governments. Aichi itself, not only in its global leadership, but it applies what it talks about because it itself demonstrates the vertical harmonization of policies and practices from the national to the urban level. And this is the connection that is fundamental for the implementation of national strategies and action plans. Our host here in the Quebec province has published a valuable collection of best practices of subnational governments, which also has provided us with the Regions for Biodiversity Learning Platform. Our partner NRG4SD has been a valuable initiative and partner to promote and support subnational efforts. And ICLEI has been at this longer than any of us, striving to support the roles of cities and biodiversity endlessly and tirelessly. ICLEI will catalyze the organization of the meetings and the summit of subnational governments and cities parallel to COP14 in Egypt this November, with the support of the Governorate of South Sinai, to which I'd like to invite you all. Just two more points. With ICLEI, we also just launched very useful guidelines on the vertical coordination of biodiversity strategies, policies, plans, and activities between all levels of government. Finally, Governor Omuru, other GoLS members, ladies and gentlemen, our dear partners, I congratulate you once again for the commitment and effectiveness you have shown and offered the support of the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity for your good work. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Amy Frankel, for your very warming welcome remarks. Now we would like to move on to the discussion session focusing on the achievements and challenges of subnational governments. Firstly, we would like to have Ms. Ayako Suganuma, Director General from Aichi Prefecture. Director General will share the achievement and challenges of GoLS with us. Ms. Suganuma, please.
Thank you, Mr. Otsuka. I will briefly introduce the effort of GoLS by today. As the governor mentioned, GoLS adopted its joint statement at COP13 and announced it at the 5th Biodiversity Summit, and we held a forum as a side event there. The statement advocated enhancing our initiative toward conservation of biodiversity and calling to other subnational governments, the parties, and SCBD. According to the statement, we have been exchanging information. For example, we compared our initiatives by the method of classifying the number of measures by each target, which Quebec showed us. We also held a side event in last December under the theme of importance of subnational governments for mainstreaming of biodiversity along Substa 21 in Montreal. In the event, we presented our initiative for mainstreaming of biodiversity into economic sectors and discussed national subnational collaboration with the government of Japan and Canada. Through the side event, I think we could show the importance of subnational governments for each targets, especially for the mainstreaming. But to enhance it across the world, we need the collaboration with the parties. Therefore, we shared the thought that horizontal and vertical collaboration among governments should be considered more. Before the side event, we honorably had a courtesy meeting with the Executive Secretary. We introduced our efforts as subnational governments. The Executive Secretary told us her expectation for more input and contribution by subnational governments for each targets and post-2020 framework. Challenges for us into the future are supposed to be enhancing the initiatives of each member and proposing new ways to encourage subnational governments in the world to make more effort by biodiversity. For example, I think subnational governments can contribute to mainstreaming of biodiversity in the world by increasing our associates within each country. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Suganuma, for sharing the experience of GoLS so far as well as proposing several new ways to encourage subnational governments in the world to make more efforts towards the Aichi biodiversity targets and post-2020 actions. Now, we would like to go on and move into the discussion on what is ahead of us towards the 2020. Now, we would like to invite the several the partners of the goals, first of all, and then would like to get some advices and some insights for the future activity for the goals. Firstly, I'd like to invite once again Ms. Amy Frankel from the Secretariat of Convention of the Biological Diversity.
Thank you so much. First, let me briefly describe what the process will be going forward to 2020. First and foremost, we still have 3 years of the decade, or 2.5 years of our decade for biodiversity that goes through 2020. So it is extremely important that goals and other efforts to link subnational, national, and local efforts, as well as the efforts taken by subnational governments to achieve the Aichi targets continue and in fact increases so that we can achieve as much of what has been set out as possible in this time frame. The process for looking beyond 2020 will be adopted at COP14 in Egypt. And the discussion on a process that will lead us through to the 2020 meeting, which will take place in Beijing, COP15, will be in fact first discussed at our upcoming meeting in July in Montreal, which starts on July 8th. And it is our meeting of the subsidiary body on implementation. So both the SBI, we call it, meeting and our COP14 meeting will be very important opportunities for goals and others to engage. And I would urge you to consider attending those meetings, of course, and looking for opportunities for side events and so forth. The process that will be adopted will be one of our official papers and will be negotiated and considered, as I mentioned, first at July and then at COP. What the draft paper, which has been circulated widely through notification to our parties and our partners, and we're still getting our comments and finalizing the documents now, but a very inclusive and comprehensive process is envisioned, where it's not just the Secretariat of the CB that is leading the process. We envision a process that will include leadership by our partners so that, for example, goals could, if it chose to, have its own initiative to seek inputs from subnational governments for the post-2020 vision. So that document, as I mentioned, will be coming out for your review soon. And it's not too soon for you to think about what might goals wish to contribute to this global effort. The second point I wanted to make is that the importance of the leadership shown by subnational governments such as you to coordinate with and advise national governments who are key players in the convention on the advantages of cooperation and of a coherent approach to decentralized cooperation cannot be overstated. And goals, given its credibility as a commitment of leaders and supported by the NRG 4SD as a wider network, can leverage the advisory committee of subnational governments of the CBD as an official, regular, and constructive communication and collaboration channel. Finally, as I'm sure you know, I've mentioned earlier that we are organizing, as we have at the last 5 conferences of the parties, a major meeting that is aimed at this discussion of cities, subnational governance, and national governments and our many partners. I can only say that this effort is growing. The recognition of the role of subnational governments, for example, in the issues that are so important for not only achieving the convention, but also, for example, the New Urban Agenda, as well as the 2030 Agenda and its Sustainable Development Goals. It's becoming clearer and clearer. And I hope that collectively we can use these opportunities to showcase how subnational governments are at the forefront of action, and we need to showcase what we can do on the mainstreaming of biodiversity and other key actions that are now the attention politically and in policies being implemented and developed in many of these forums. So I want to thank you once again for this opportunity to speak, and I look forward to listening to the remarks of the partners on the call. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Frankel, once again for your very insightful advice, and please stay the rest of the the meeting, and we will get a lot from the subnational governments for the further discussion. Now, we would like to invite my colleague, Ms. Kobe Bland, from the ICLEI Center for Biodiversity. Kobe, I believe you are going to use a slide, and the slide can be operated only from this side, so that when you want us to change the slide to the next slide, please say next please or something like that. Now, Kobe, please.
Thank you, and thank you very much. I just want to check in, Takashi, if you can hear me well on your side.
Yes, I can hear you very well.
All right. So thank you very, very much for this opportunity, and especially also to the governor of Aichi Prefecture, who has been a leading and exemplary subnational government. Inspires all of us back at the office when we do our daily work. We fondly remember the collaboration with Aichi Prefecture and its bishop, the government of Japan, India, as well as all the other collaborators from Japan coming together at the time of the summit that was held. And we remember the leading up to that summit and the follow through after that summit, with a collective voice from subnational governments, large and smaller, came together at the occasions of CBD COPs. And again, it was a very big honor to witness and be part of the formal launch goals in Mexico, and the leading up to that collaboration. And a point in history when the subnational governments around the table today came together and said that they want to collectively show this leadership to the rest of the world and inspire others to join. So I particularly want to commend Governor Moro for you in this point in time, other subnational governments to come forward and join, take hands in your collective voice, but also in the collective demonstrated leadership efforts on the ground, and also the political coming together of leaders in the space of the CBD convention and its associated talks, but also very practically sharing amongst each other, and also demonstrate efforts together as subnational governments, but also in your collaboration with your national governments, the parties of the convention, as well as with the other levels of local government, cities and towns. So I would like, Takashi, the first two slides are really just an introduction to ICLEI. So I would like to ask you to move across to the third slide. There are only three, and that is where I would like to just make a point or two. Contribution from ICLEI. We're very proud to share with you a document which you can see on the side of the slide. It's a new guideline document which advocates for and demonstrates how integration between the different levels of governments can and should be achieved and are actually manifested on the ground today in our leading networks. So from that regard, I would like to urge you, if you have not downloaded the document yet, please do so, engage with it, and also to thank you all for your contributions towards it. Then I would also like to draw our collective attention once again to the Quintana Roo communique on mainstreaming local and subnational biodiversity action, which we collectively crafted, actually, and you were all part of that, in Quintana Roo, in Cancun, a year and a half ago. And go and look again at what it actually covers. It is making bold statements for the critical need for subnational governments to take further leading action, because it is realized that the Aichi targets can only actually be achieved by the collective efforts of our subnational and local governments, and that these levels of governments are already cooperating also with their national governments, but that this effort should be strengthened. So again, let us go back to the Peru communique and see how we want to build on that when we now turn towards Egypt and when we're going to turn to China in the next years ahead. And I think the point that, Amy, that you are making, that we actually almost have 3 years left. It's almost a third of the time left to achieve and inspire towards greater attainment of the Aichi targets. So yes, we want to, from each point of view, say we are here to collaborate. We welcome the governor's invitation to broaden the membership of GoLS, and we are looking forward to actually work with you to bring more leading subnational governments to this important network, and to work in Egypt and again towards COP20, the COP in 2020. The point is we want to go forward with for next decade of action. So I just want to say Aichi is an inspiration to ICLEI. We really appreciate this cooperation that we have in this leading network, and we look forward to seeing you at the World Congress, at COP14, COP50, and other forums like Urbio, which will take place later this year. And then also an appeal involved in the Aichi, in the GoLS network, our cities into the space, and to see how we can take leading action in bringing many of these local governments and other subnational governments together, inspiration to work closer with national government. So thank you for the opportunity. It's always a pleasure to work with the GoLS network. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Covey, our Blunt from our ICLEI. And we hear some dogs bawling behind. And I think your office is full of biodiversity, and we welcome other, biological diversity, characters in the further, comments and right. Yes, thank you once again.
I must say, I'm really apologizing for that. I'm truly apologizing for that because I'm actually taking this call from home as it is a holiday here in South Africa. So I'm working at home today. So these are my dogs in my garden, my own biodiversity, but my apologies.
No need for apologies. Thank you very much for joining on your holiday to this important meeting. Now we would like to move on to the next speaker. We would like to invite Mr. Belen Guerrero, who is the International Affairs Advisor of ASAI, which is in a state in Ecuador. He stands for he is joining this meeting as an representative of the NLG for SD. Can we have Mr. Belen Guerrero? Okay, can we invite Ms. Natalia Vela from the Energy for SD? Is Natalia there?
Yes, hello, Takashi.
Yes.
Can you hear me well on your side?
Yes, we do. Go ahead, please.
Hello. Good evening in Japan and good morning, good afternoon in the rest of the world. It is a real pleasure to participate in this executive level online meeting promoted by Honorable Governor. Indeed, I would like to assume my words to the ones shared by the colleagues from the CBD and from ICLEI in the sense of recognizing this crucial role that Aichi has played since the COP10 in Nagoya, especially to be recognized this leading role of the Aichi prefecture under the management of Honorable Governor Omura. For us as Energy for Sea, it is a real honor and pleasure to be able to work closely with the Aichi prefecture within the Advisory Committee of Subnational Governments. As Amy frankly said before, this advisory committee is an exceptional opportunity for us subnational governments to contribute to the implementation of the Convention of Biological Diversity, and especially to have this official channel of communication with its secretariat to be able to make contributions and to support their efforts. So we are really pleased to be able to share this platform with the Aichi prefecture, and especially to count GoLS as one of the platforms integrated in this advisory committee. The GoLS is a crucial platform that helps to bring political inputs and discussions into the advisory committee and therefore to the CBD. There's another platform that Energy for SD leads, which is technical level. So it's a complementary role that this platform plays, the Regions for Biodiversity Learning Platform. So we believe that what we should be doing, we subnational governments, is to keep on using this exceptional opportunity that the CBD gave us through the Advisory Committee of Subnational Governments, make our voice be listened over there, help especially in this vertical integration of policies. So we are responsible and we have a key position in terms of linking the national and the local in this medium position, linking those government levels. And therefore, we have a big responsibility in ensuring that these global targets, these global agendas are implemented in the ground, and therefore our collaboration with the parties to ensure that these national strategies and action plans are aligned with the ones we subnational governments develop and then are implemented in the ground. So this responsibility is crucial, and we need to ensure that this vertical integration happens. So we are happy to keep on continuing our collective efforts. We think that this advisory committee must be open to all subnational governments that have these or feel this big responsibility we have and want to contribute and want to commit. And it is a pleasure to do it under the advisory committee and with the leadership of the Aichi prefecture before the goals platform. So that would be our contribution as Energy First D. And I would like to finish by saying that Belén Guerrero has had technical connections into the platform today, but she has forwarded me a message from our president for the South, that is the vice president of ICLEI in Ecuador, Ms. Maria Cecilia Alvarado. And her message today was to invite all subnational governments to an international conference on biodiversity titled A Territorial Rights-Based Approach to Biodiversity, which will be held next June, and in which what we want to do is to bring subnational governments together and prepare our position and our capacity to contribute and make a substantial input into the CBD COP14 in November. So you're all kindly invited on behalf of our President for the South to this meeting that will take place in Cuenca in Ecuador on 21st, 22nd June. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Natalia Vela, Secretary General of NLGSD. Now, we'd like to move on to some comments from the parties. Firstly, we would like to invite Mr. Naohisa Okuda, the Director of the Biodiversity Policy Division of the Ministry of the Environment of Japan. Mr. Okuda?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, please.
Okay. Hello, good evening and good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Your honor, important meeting. I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to the Governor Omura and the organizers for inviting our government to this executive online meeting, which is a valuable opportunity for the leading subnational governments around the world to get together. As we all know, as the host of CBD COP10, Aichi prefectural government is one of the most leading subnational governments in Japan on biodiversity conservation. It is our great pleasure that they have engaged actively in biodiversity-related activities, including those under the convention, even after hosting COP10. During this period, the prefectural government and the central government of Japan have close engagement. Today, please let me share briefly two of the efforts made in collaboration with local and central governments in Japan. The governments of Japan have developed and been revising 4 times our NBSAPs. And in 2007, we Furthermore, Japanese local governments are encouraged to formulate local biodiversity strategies and action plans, LBSAPs, according to the Act, either by themselves or in collaboration with other neighboring municipalities, targeting to establishment of LBSAPs at all the 47 prefectures by 2020. We have documented and shared guidelines for establishing LBSAPs and a review of LBSAPs to support their efforts. As a result, 41 prefectural governments and 83 municipalities have developed their LBSAPs so far, including 5 cities who jointly established a LBSAP. Furthermore, a framework called Network of Local Governments on Biodiversity was established in Japan in 2011. It aims at contributing to achieving the Aichi biodiversity target through enhancing information on efforts and outcomes for conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity among local governments, as well as through cooperating with other sectors which are members of Japan Committee for United Nations Decades on Biodiversity, so-called UNDBJ. I recognize that Aichi Prefecture government has led the efforts of 155 Japanese local governments in the network as its very first president. We, the Minister of Environment of Japan, have also attended every meeting of the network and frequently exchange information with the members. We hope Aichi Prefecture government would further enhance its contribution to accelerate efforts towards achieving Aichi biodiversity targets in 2020 while stimulating other subnational governments in Japan, as well as around the world. We're also willing to support their efforts through communicating the activities to the world or sharing our experiences to other parties if requested. That's all what I would like to say at this moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Okuda, for your precious comments. And then we would like to also hear from some comments from the Ministry of the Environment of the Republic of Korea. I'd like to invite Ms. Yong-hee Ham from the Gangwon province to convey the message from the Ministry of the Environment of the Korea. Ms. Yong-hee Ham, are you there?
Hi. Yes, I'm Young. Good morning. Good afternoon. Yeah, thank you for thank you for organizing this meeting. So thank you, Mr. Omura, and I just deliver the comment of Ministry of Environment of Korea. So next page, next slide. Yes. The third MB shops will be finished by 2018, and Ministry of Environment of Korea is now establishing the first MB shops to be implemented from 2019 to 2023. There are many projects to support for subnational government in the third MB shops. So, and it's a MOE of Korea has been supporting budget for subnational government by 50 to 70 of total expenses of the project so far. And it's the MOE enacted laws on biodiversity and developed guidelines for MB shops and practical models. However, despite this effort of MOE of Korea, raising awareness and mainstream of biodiversity in subnational and city governments have been improved, but are not enough. So in establishing the forest MB shops, MOE is more focusing on emphasizing measures to mainstream of biodiversity for subnational and city governments and expanding finance for enhancing biodiversity and revitalization of ecotourism for local economy. Next slide. Regarding mainstreaming of biodiversity in subnational and city governments, in 2013, only one subnational government established LB shops, but since MOE developed guidelines, distributed, and has supported biodiversity forum organized by subnational government annually. Now, for subnational government and for metropolitan city government have established bishops until now. Finally, 50% of subnational government and metropolitan cities have established bishops in Korea. So for boosting established of LB shops and raising awareness of biodiversity, MOE will develop new guideline and citizen participating programs. And second, MOE will expand the finance that is beneficial for biodiversity. For example, there is a project called Biodiversity Management Contract, which provides financial assistance to local residents to provide food and shelter, to protect wildlife, such as migratory birds. So MOE has been supporting budget for such projects so far, but MOE will expand target areas and species as measures of enhancing awareness for residents and effective conservation. In addition, is ecosystem conservation charges that developers pay at a certain rate per development area will be paid for ecological restoration projects more than other projects. Next slide. The third is in order to revitalize the local economy, utilizing ecosystem surveys, MOE will discover local leaders in eco-tour areas and support budget for developing differentiate eco-tour programs in cooperation with travel agents, and also will establish cooperative system like a cooperation council with subnational government and other stakeholders to secure eco-tour resources such as restoration of ecosystem and designation of protected area as a driving force for regional development. So simply, I delivered major point of MOE in Korea for subnational and city government biodiversity goals by 2020. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Yeonhee Ham, for sharing the message from the Ministry of the Environment of Korea. Now, after hearing a lot of encouraging comments from partners as well as the parties, we would like to move on to the feedback or the expression of willingness to further contribute to the Aichi biodiversity target from sub-national governments. Now, you may know that we are a little bit behind the scheduled time, and I am very much sorry and afraid to say that I have to ask the rest of the speakers to speak a little bit faster towards the end of the meeting. Having said that, I'd like to invite the first speaker from the subnational government, Governor Omura from Aichi Prefecture, Japan. Governor Omura, please.
Thank you, Mr. Otsuka. Okay, look at the slide. Okay. Okay, you can see the slide. Okay, Aichi is Japan's #1 center for automobile and aerospace industries. Our industrial output is worth $42 billion and has ranked #1 in the nation for 40 years in Japan. I have been focusing on also making Aichi #1 in the area of environment from my first day in office as governor. The reason, naturally, is because we are such a big industrial center. In addition to COP10 in 2010, Aichi hosted the World Exposition under the theme of Nature's Wisdom in 2005 and the UNESCO World Conference on ESD in 2014. Through these major environmental events, citizens and businesses in Aichi have developed high environmental awareness. Please, slide 2. For instance, leading companies in and around Aichi established a group called the Environmental Partnership Organizing Club, or EPOC, before Expo 2005 Aichi. EPOC is active to this day. Also, Toyota, which has its headquarters in Aichi, has established an ambitious environment goal called Toyota Environmental Challenge 2050. They aim to promote a sustainable society through their business activities from manufacturing to sales. Last June, the Aichi Prefecture government and Toyota held a joint event to raise public awareness on biodiversity. Please, slide 3. In addition to such corporate activities, academies, NPOs, and governments are also actively engaged in environmental initiatives. Based on the Aichi targets and the National Biodiversity Strategy of Japan, the Aichi Prefectural Government compiled the Aichi Biodiversity Strategy 2020 in 2013. Under this strategy, a number of various organizations have come together to form the Ecosystem Network Councils in 9 locations in Aichi. They are dedicated to preserving ecosystems across Aichi. 250 companies and organizations participate in the councils, and membership is expanding. Okay, we only have less than 3 years to achieve the Aichi targets. Members of GoLS have gained a lot of knowledge and experience through our activities within and beyond the group. We will continue building on our partnership among member regions and facilitating subnational government efforts worldwide, while seeking advice and cooperation from ICLEI, Energy FOSD, the CBD Secretariat, and the parties. We remain committed to our mission and will keep working to protect biodiversity in all our communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Governor Omura, and sorry for rushing you, but thank you very much for your cooperation for keeping the time as well. Now, we'd like to move on to the next subnational government. I'd like to invite Quebec. We have Assistant Deputy Minister, Mr. Jacob Martin Malus. Is Mr. Jacob Martin Malus, can you take the floor, please? Yes, we can hear you. Perhaps you could speak a little bit louder.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Minister of Sustainable Development, the Environment and the Fight Against Climate Change of Quebec, Isabelle Melançon, it is both a pleasure and an honor to share the actions of the government of Quebec in reaching the Aichi biodiversity targets with you. On behalf of Minister Melançon, permit me to thank Governor Omura for having mobilized subnational governments members of the group of leading subnational governments and salute his initiative in organizing today's high-level meeting. Quebec extends over a vast territory of nearly 1.7 million square kilometers that is dotted with millions of bodies of water and covered by forests that are home to countless living species. The biological richness is a source of pride for us, but it also comes with a great responsibilities because we are its caretakers for the well-being of the generations of today and tomorrow. This is why, along with the subnational governments taking part in today's meeting, Quebec has long been committed to the implementation of the Convention on Biological Diversity, which is signed in 1992. To achieve this, we have chosen to anchor the goal of biodiversity protection in Quebec's major sustainable development policies. In this perspective, and in responding to the Aichi targets, Quebec adopted the Government Biological Diversity Guidelines in 2013, which have been strengthened by the Government Sustainable Development Strategy 2015-2020. Also of note is the 2013-2020 Climate Change Action Plan, whose priorities have notably made it possible to update the tools used to evaluate, protect, and manage biodiversity and ecosystems. Through this action plan, the government of Quebec was able to invest $3.3 million in the implementation of biodiversity monitoring network that makes it possible to detect and measure the effects of climate change on Quebec biodiversity and ecosystems. I also want to call attention to our Plan Nord, a project of considerable magnitude whose goal is the sustainable economic development and conservation of northern Quebec, by the way, which represents 2/3 of Quebec's territory and more than 230 times the size of Aichi Prefecture. 20% of this territory is set to become protected areas, which will enable Quebec to reach by 2020 the goal of 17% of land and internal water protected areas set by the parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity. Quebec is also committed to reaching the international protection target of 10% of its sea environments by 2020 by means of the 2015-2020 Action Plan, which is part of its maritime strategy. To this end, Quebec works with the Government of Canada, with which it has agreed to an intergovernmental accord for facilitating the designation of protected marine areas within its territory and achieving the Aichi target. More recently, our government has instituted a moratorium on hydrocarbon exploration on the 8,000 square kilometer Anticosti Island, a natural jewel which is listed as a potential UNESCO World Heritage Site in Canada and where protected areas will ensure the longevity of its natural environments. Protecting our natural treasures also requires that regulations match current challenges. For this reason, in June 2017, Quebec strengthened its conservation measures covering bodies of water with the Act, representing the conservation of wetlands and bodies of water, which aims at nothing else than zero net loss in these sensitive environments. Even more recently, Quebec modernized its pesticide oversight regime, which promises important gains in protecting public health, the environment, and all pollinators, including bees. This regulatory upgrade comes with measures aimed at supporting frontline actors, in this instance farmers, who can now count on investment in the order of $14 million over 5 years to reduce the dangers of pesticide use. We also take pride in having developed the Sentinelle mobile application, with which citizens can find, photograph, and report invasive species encountered during outdoor activities. We believe that this type of citizen-based initiative will make it possible to better counter the negative impacts of such species on Quebec's biological diversity. These are a few examples of concrete initiatives upon which Quebec counts in pursuing its biodiversity conservation efforts and reaching the Aichi targets by 2020. In closing, please allow me to remind you that the 25th anniversary of the Convention on Biological Diversity will be celebrated here in Montreal, the city that hosts the Secretariat of the Convention. This time of celebration is conducive to reflecting on our accomplishments, but also on the urgent need to act in a concerted fashion and renew our efforts to protect biodiversity. We already know that the contributions of all levels of government will be a determining factor in overcoming this challenge. This is why Quebec salutes and encourages all initiatives that give voice to subnational governments, federated states, and local authorities in the field of biodiversity, particularly by creating cooperative networks and sharing knowledge. In this spirit, I sincerely thank you for providing this opportunity to reaffirm our common determination to protecting the inestimable richness that is our planet's biological diversity. You can be certain that Quebec will continue to be a committed partner that contributes to the implementation of the Strategic Plan for Biodiversity 2011-2020 of the Convention and the Aichi targets. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Assistant Deputy Minister. And thank you very much for sharing the Quebec's the experience as well as the future actions. Now, we would like to have 3 more subnational governments to provide their presentation using the slides. Once again, I'd like to remind you that we are a little bit behind of the time, and if you could, I'm very much sorry to say this, but if you could have your slide presentation as concise as possible, that is very much appreciated. The first, I would like to invite Catalonia from Spain, Mr. Feren Milares, Director General of Environmental Policies and Biodiversity. Mr. Milares, are you there? Is your microphone on?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good morning. Good morning to all. Thank you, first of all, to Aichi Prefecture for your effort to hold this meeting. I will now briefly tell you what Catalonia is doing with regards to the achievement of HE targets. Up to now, and even without a local biodiversity strategy and action plan, Catalonia has made progress on most targets, since its government has full competencies on nature conservation and environmental assessment. For instance, Target 2, land planning is a key issue. It first helped to define protected areas and now is the basis for green infrastructure. 64% of Catalonia's surface is qualified as land under special protection. For instance, Target 11, almost 32% of Catalonia belongs to the protected areas system. And the Target 20, a fund for nature conservation, was established by the Catalan law on climate change. In 2060, the NGO Ecologistas in Action assessed Catalonia's achievement of HE biodiversity targets and stated that it was satisfactory, though stronger efforts had to be made on strategic goals B and E. Now we have a biodiversity strategy and action plan about to be passed by the Catalan government, focused on 6 main issues closely related to the 5 HE strategic goals. The Catalan strategy commits the government to increase knowledge, information, and assessment on biodiversity and nature, protect habitats and species, land planning, green infrastructure, mainstream biodiversity into sectoral policies, governance, and more social awareness and engagement with nature conservation. We participate in the Regions for Biodiversity Learning platform led by Energy Forest D to share our experience at the technical level. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director General. And we need to move on to the Gangwon now. I'd like to invite Ms. Yonghee Han from Gangwon Province once again.
Yes, thank you. Yes, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I'm Young from Gangwon Province. So I'd like to say about its assessment of SMB shops in Gangwon Province. Gangwon Province established the first subnational biodiversity strategy and action plans just before COP12 held in Gangwon 2014. And last year, Gangwon carried a midterm assessment of SMB shops, about 67 projects from August to December last year. We'll review how projects had been implemented and, it's the next slide. Sorry. Yes, so we reviewed how project had been implemented and how SMB shops contribute to Aichi biodiversity targets. Next slide. So As a result, the project of SMB shops was implemented on average of 48.4%. We also contributed to 12 Aichi biodiversity target. As you see the results, there are still shortage in the mainstreaming of biodiversity and building research and management system. So we need to more focus on the cooperation with regional communities, international organizations, and subnational government and other stakeholders. So by 2020, Gangwon will make effort to enact biodiversity ordinance for mainstreaming of biodiversity into the major goals of provincial government. And we are trying to establish an Institute of Biological Resources and regional management system to control biodiversity and promote local income related projects. Gangwon has made lots of effort in international cooperation since COP12 2014. For instance, Gangwon is currently carrying out youth exchanging program with Aichi and joint environmental research program with 4 subnational government of Northeast Asian country. So we will concrete and expand network and develop a project with subnational government in Northeast Asia and other is world subnational government. And in 2020, we will establish a second SMB shop of Gangwon by combining post-2020 project and other important plans that have not been implemented in the first SMB shops. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gangwon Province. And then the last but not least, I would like to invite the Ontario from Canada. We have Mr. Steve Hounsell, Chair of the Ontario Biodiversity Council. Is Steve there?
Yes. Hello, all.
Hello, go ahead.
And
we can
first,
hear you.
I would like to thank. Okay, thank you. First, I too would like to thank the organizers of this important event from Aichi, Japan, and in particular, Governor Omura, who continue to provide a leadership function for GoLS. Second, I would like to convey our continued support and honor of being a member of this very noble organization. We believe that protecting the diversity of life on Earth, of which we humans are an integral part, requires broad societal consensus and participation. It is a challenge not for some of us, but for all of us. It is the very essence of mainstreaming and the very essence of the GoLS initiative. Ontario's biodiversity strategy is a 10-year strategy leading us out to 2020. It builds upon an earlier strategy that was released in 2005 and was refined through a multi-stakeholder engagement process during the first half of 2011, led by the Ontario Biodiversity Council. That renewal process drew guidance from the just-released Strategic Plan for Biodiversity and its associated Aichi targets. The renewed Ontario Biodiversity Strategy was formally released in June of 2011. We were the first subnational government to renew our strategy to align with the international strategy. Ontario's activities are both informed by and contribute to international commitments under the UN Convention on Biological Diversity and Canada's obligations and commitments via the Canadian Biodiversity Strategy. Next slide, please. Our strategy comes complete with a broad vision statement for the future, 3 high-level goals pertaining to first, mainstreaming biodiversity across all sectors, secondly, protecting and restoring Ontario's biodiversity, and thirdly, using Ontario's biological assets sustainably. We have identified 4 strategic directions to help guide our progress towards achieving our vision and goals. They include engaging people, reducing threats, enhancing resilience, and improving knowledge. Next slide, please. Those strategic directions provide the guiding framework for our outcome-based biodiversity conservation and include some 15 time-bound targets which serve to focus our efforts and enable us to both track and report on a 5-year cycle both the state of Ontario's biodiversity and our progress towards achieving our strategy vision and goals. In conclusion, Ontario remains committed to the spirit of goals and will continue to work to advance progress on its targets. We will also continue to work to advance progress at the local level with cities and municipalities and among other subnational governments within Canada to achieve the Aichi biodiversity targets. And I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ontario. This ends all the presentations and from the subnational governments. We were originally planning to address some comments and questions from the audiences. We indeed have a few coming in, but I'm very much sorry to tell you that we are running out of the time, so that we would like to address those precious comments and questions via email or after this meeting as soon as possible. Now, I would like to move to the almost the closing part of the meeting. I would like to invite Governor Omura for summarizing today's our session, and would like to have his few words. Governor Omura, please.
Hi, thank you for your very constructive discussion. We also thank our YouTube audience. Based on today's discussion, we will make further efforts so that we, subnational governments, can best demonstrate our commitment to achieve the Aichi targets. I ask for everyone's continued support toward our cause. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Governor Omura. Now, we have breaking news, actually. Like São Paulo, Brazil has kindly joined the meeting at the very end. São Paulo, you have a minute to share your experience as well as your, the activities ahead.
Hello, can you listen to me?
Yes, it is Mr. Paul Dell.
Yes, hello for everybody. Good evening, morning, and afternoon, and thank you for supporting this initiative, and congratulations. Our governor and our secretariat and our coordinator, and also all the team of the federal government are attending to the World Water Forum at Brasilia City, and they are very sad, but they cannot be with us today because they are in Brasilia and a lot of things to do at this World Forum. But sorry for their absence, but there's a lot of good things happening there. And that's important for us to celebrate the previous speakers and the previous experiences and our commitment to, since the Aichi COP until 2020 and beyond, to give examples and to improve with you guys and learning more with you to learn more how to improve our subnational government's actions towards the implementation of the CDB. We are doing a lot of actions, and I'm afraid that we would be late with your repeating some action, but most of the action that we are doing is improve and goals, action like goals, like energy, the platform, and to participate. We are planning to participate on Ecuador, on Montreal, and the COP at Egypt, and we are doing the plan to make a pre-COP event here in São Paulo in September, you integrating the climate change COP and the biodiversity COP to discuss actions integrated towards the two COPs, the two conventions. And the most important things that we are doing now are related to protected areas. And yesterday, the federal government in Brazil celebrated the creation of a marine protected area, a huge marine protected area with 91 million of hectares. And that we are very happy with this area. Then we are trying to unify our actions because we have a huge marine protected areas in São Paulo as a state protected area. Then we start to link with this very new federal area. And to the restoration project here, it's a huge one, linking protected areas like IUCN Category 1 and with different kinds of areas linked to multiple use of the forest. So we are trying to cover all the state in this planning process. Probably we will have some good example or tools in the next months for you. I hope you can enjoy this. So I can talk a little bit more, but I'm afraid to not have time to this. And thank you and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paul Day from São Paulo. We are very happy to have you, even it was a very last moment to have you. And with the São Paulo's final inputs, we would like to close the meeting. Once again, I would like to thank all the subnational governments, the parties, our partners, as well as our audiences joined this important meeting despite of the time differences and the technical challenges. And I believe this important meeting should have given another thrust for our goals for the future strengths and activities. Having said so, I'd like to declare the end of the meeting. Thank you very much for everybody. Until the next time, so long.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. ありがとう。